queen to h5 here is, oh my goodness. Oh my, you guys, this move. Oh my goodness. I am so excited to share this with you. I've been researching it. It's actually good. It's actually good. I'm going to need these. I'm going to need these Gambit glasses, guys. Gambit lovers, let's show how we got here. I'm so excited to share with you. It's not even dubious. It's a counter Gambit. All right, so we're going to start with d4, d5. We're going to get into all these really exciting and really legitimate lines. But so we offer this pawn here with e4. It looks like a Black Mardimer Gambit. But if you're a fan of this channel, you know it's actually going to be a Von Popiel Gambit. Or you are about to be a fan of this channel, and after this video, you are going to watch the Von Popiel video, which I would very strongly recommend, is with bishop to g5 here. So inviting our opponent to play bishop to f5, we play f3, we can go queen takes f3, attacking all this stuff. Super fun stuff, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about the Lemberger counter gambit with e5, which is actually a pretty solid counter gambit. Because, so, I mean, if white pushes d5, as is the most common thing, black can just play knight f6, and black's pretty much actually just a pawn up here. If white accepts the counter gambit with pawn takes e5, then black can just trade queens, play knight c6, attack the pawn. White can, like, counterattack this pawn, but here the positions are symmetrical, and it's black's turn, so black's actually up a move. So I'm not going to advise you to do this. I'm just so excited. Knight takes e4 is another option, and it's actually what I was playing and what I was recommending until this video, until this queen h5 discovery. But the point is that if queen takes d4, we can play bishop to d3, we dodge the queen trade, we protect our knight here, knight f3 is coming in next, we can castle our king. Everything's looking great here. This is good compensation for the pawn. Pawn takes d4, knight f3, and we could just like play normally. This is like a pretty sane way to play chess. You know, what white here is doing totally fine. However, I'm not recommending a sane way to play chess. I'm recommending a counter gambit. So this started with us offering the pawn here with e4, right? So it's a gambit. Now we're in the Lemberger counter gambit with e5. And it is a counter gambit called the Sneider Attack with queen to h5. Okay, what is the point of queen to h5? So the point is if they just take pawn takes d4, we're not going to play knight takes e4 actually. We're down 2 pawns here, but we're going to play bishop to c4, threatening checkmate on f7. Black here has like 4 ways to deal with it. All these queen moves or pawn up. Of course, they can't take our knight because that's checkmate. So all 4 of these moves, 2 of them lose immediately. One of them is Stockfish's recommendation. Pawn takes d4 is Stockfish's recommendation. So we're going to go all the way down Stockfish's recommendations, and I'm going to overcome it. So every time I make these videos, there's always people in the comments being like, okay, but Stockfish says this, so your line is wrong. That's fine. I love responding to people in the comments. I'll leave my Lichess username right here. If you guys want to challenge me with it, I would be so excited to do that. But we're going to overcome Stockfish's recommendation here. And I'm so excited to get to that in later parts of this video. But first, after queen to h5, I'm talking really fast. I'm so excited, you guys. After queen to h5, there's a couple of other options for black. We'll put these gambit glasses away for now. But black here can also play queen takes d4. They can also take the pawn with the queen. And now, we are 2 pawns down, but we can just play bishop to e3. So we just bring a piece out, we're attacking the queen, and this queen really should stay on the e5 pawn. We're threatening to play queen takes e5 check. If they, for example, go away, queen b4, as is like one of the more common moves, queen takes e5 check is check. We're also recollecting this pawn. We're going to castle to protect b2. That's not an issue, and we're just not even going to be a pawn down anymore. c7's hanging as well. This position's looking great for white with great development. So queen b4, not a good option. So queen d6 is the main option. It's the only one that really holds the e5 pawn. Knight f6 is a move, a little bit of a rare one, but it attacks our queen. Kind of a clever idea and develops a piece. So we can kind of agree to that queen trade. Takes. There's 2 pawns hanging here. So we're getting one of them back, and we also have good development here entering this endgame. So it's playable for both sides. But here, queen d6, let's talk about it. So I'm going to recommend knight takes e4, so we're getting 1 out of our 2 pawns back, and we're still attacking this queen. So again, the queen should hold the e5 pawn, queen b4 check makes a lot of sense. It's check, it hits the knight should come back. And now here, black needs to be pretty precise. So there's basically 2 moves here, because we're threatening queen takes e5. Black doesn't have anything developed other than their queen, right? And so there's knight c6 to protect this pawn, and there's queen takes b2. So let's look at knight c6. I think both are like Stockfish's recommendations, kind of. I think queen takes b2 more so, actually. But bishop to c4 we're playing here to attack f7. As is typical, like, of the point of queen h5, I mean, there's 2 things we want to attack, really. So we're attacking f7. g6 should be played. And as is played in all three of these games, queen just comes back, attacks f7 again. There's really no easy way to deal with this. So like f5, for example, you know, we just castle. Black can also try to maybe castle their king, but we can cut that off. And so here we're one pawn down, but I think we have some pretty good compensation here because this king is hard to get out of the center. Black seems a little overextended, not good development, pretty easy play for white to just bring out their pieces. And, you know, if this is the very best black can do with queen d5 coming as an additional threat there, it's a pretty legitimate threat, then, you know, I would play this position any day of the week with white. So the other option here, queen takes b2, attacks the rook and protects e5. And so we go back to being 2 pawns down. And now 3 out of 3 black players have played queen to c3. And you can pause the video and try to figure out why queen to c3 is actually losing immediately. Yeah, it's just bishop to c4. I mean, we always want to play bishop to c4 when we bring our queen out. We attack f7. So, you know, bishop e6, you'll note as a recurring pattern, is impossible because this pawn is pinned. So that's just a free bishop. Knight h6, of course, doesn't work as well. Take that knight. Now nobody's defending f7. And here, I mean, the positions, so, I mean, there's g6. But we play just queen back to f3, as we looked at in the other line. So we're attacking f7 again. This is really the only way to deal with it. Queen d5, and black is just losing immediately, really, because queen to f7, there's nothing to defend it. Before, I think at least there was queen to e7 to come back, but you see black has just moved their queen so many times. It's just like fished around for pawns and such, and hasn't developed any of their pieces where we've gotten a lot of pieces out. So you see here this position's already immediately lost. I think it's recommending like king d8 gets the best evaluation maybe. You know, just allowing queen takes f7. So this position's not really playable for black. Black needs to know queen takes c2 as nobody's ever found, but a queen takes e5 check, Leela gives a much better evaluation than this for white. Tough stuff for black to find. So that pretty much covers queen takes d4. We're just going to come out bishop e3, and we're going to try and chase this queen off of the e5 pawn, and we're going to have pretty good compensation either way. Things are going to be tough for black to play. So there's another option other than pawn takes d4, and it is knight to f6. Knight to f6 is a counter-counter gambit. There's 3 counters because, so to review, we offer this pawn, gambit, right? Now here there's us offering us a pawn. They want to be down material. They want to sacrifice material. It's a counter gambit. Now we've seen counter gambits in chess, but I don't even know if there's been a counter gambit. I haven't seen one of those. If you guys know a counter gambit in chess, then please drop that in the comments. So we say, we want to sacrifice material. They're like, no, I'm sacrificing material. Then we're like, no, we are sacrificing material. And now finally with knight f6, this is all happening with the span of 4 moves. They're like, no, we are sacrificing material. So black can play pawn takes or queen takes d4 to go up 2 pawns, but instead just knight f6, offering queen takes e5, and we're going to capture maybe a second pawn in a moment. So black here has 2 ways to deal with it, queen e7, bishop e7. At this instant, the pawn count is equal. So queen e7 is not very threatening. We play bishop to g5. We're not just going to go queen takes e7 and help out their development. Because if black wants to trade queens, then we play pawn takes e5, hitting the knight, making it move, and after knight takes e4, we're just going to be up a pawn in the endgame. And, you know, again, black really doesn't have any development. Black can try knight c6, attacking our queen to encourage a favorable capture for them. But after bishop to b5, here black is suffering once again because, you know, they have the same issue of this knight being pinned now. Knight takes e4 is coming. If they play bishop to d7 to break up this pin, make this knight useful once more, that actually block the queen's defense over here, and, you know, white can just feast on all this stuff. Black's queen is just awkwardly placed, blocking their castle, and things are not looking good for black in this position. And otherwise it's difficult to recommend a move here. Okay, the engine's just recommending to bite the bullet and just be down a pawn in the endgame. So queen e7, not very threatening. There's bishop to e7, but then we just play bishop to f4. So we just play bishop to f4 and we're attacking over here. So knight c6, I mean, just encourages us to take c7. I mean, it's playable, but it just encourages us to take c7. For example, castles, I mean, we're just going to take c7 anyway. And at this moment, we are actually up 1 pawn. The most common move, you'll see here, the most common move is actually queen takes d4, which just hangs a bishop. It just hangs a bishop straight up, like there's really nothing more to it. Black could trade and then play knight c6, which could sort of transpose if they play knight c6 before castling. But you'll note that actually after d5, black is completely lost. Black is completely lost because, you know, okay, we castle our king, and this pawn's just a monster. I mean, it attacks the bishop, and it can just kind of keep going. So not looking good for black there. Black needs to be, you know, very precise here, but either way, they're really just down a pawn in the endgame after bishop comes out to f4. So knight f6, counter gambit, 3 counters, not really too scary, actually. So it's really hard for black to be the one to have some fun here. Black needs to play the most common move. They have to go into it. Really, it's pawn takes d4. Pawn takes d4, bishop to c4. threatening checkmate. So, okay, they can't take our knight because we're threatening checkmate. We've sacrificed 2 pawns, but we're not sacrificing our knight as well. At least not just yet. But as I mentioned, there's queen d7, there's queen e7, there's queen f6, and there's pawn g6. And 2 of these lose immediately. And at the end of this video, we're going to get to this big Stockfish recommendation, and we're going to overcome that with more crazy sacrifices. So let's get to the ones that lose. And pawn g6. So you see these top 4 moves that we talked about are pretty much equally common. Pawn g6 allows just queen e5 check. And queen e5 check, now there's a rook hanging because this pawn moved up. And that's great for us. So queen e7. And now here, this is an important point. 200 people versus 3 people have taken the rook versus the pawn. However, if we take this rook, then they take our knight. And so here they have a knight and 2 pawns at this exact instant. They have a knight and 2 pawns for the rook. If you keep feasting, they take over here. Okay, we're pretty much obliged to take back. And now after queen b4 check, they're taking this bishop. Uh-oh, we're losing. We're losing. We need to find some precise moves here just to keep it equal. Or a little bit better was maybe b3 here. However, we have a better option. I mean, I pointed out that queen takes h8 was an option, but the other option is queen takes d4. Not many people have found that. A lot of people like the rook. However, I like the attack. I like the activity. And this is much, much more fun because here, so we were only down 2 pawns and we took 1. We're only down 1 pawn at the moment. And black still has this impossible issue of the rook to resolve. It's impossible to resolve. I mean, in general in chess, if you start a fianchetto, you gotta finish that fianchetto because that moment of weakness on that diagonal is killer. Because of course, you know, bishop g7 just hangs the bishop right now. So it's a big issue for black. 3 out of 3 people in this position have played knight f6, bishop to g5. I bet black wishes that pawn was here now. That knight is hanging. That's a killer pin. Bishop to g7 can be played. Knight d5. Knight d5. If you have a pin, keep putting pressure on that pin piece because that pin piece cannot move out of the way. So now white has 3 attackers on f6 in addition to that queen hanging. If knight takes d5, I think a lot of things are winning here, including taking over here. That rook falls as well, in addition to the queen hanging. So not really much that black can do, you know, if they move the queen. Okay, well, there's knight takes c7, but there's also taking that knight. Knight c6 is an interesting try. I just thought this was a very interesting line. How do we actually get our piece here? We play queen takes f6. It is the nicest way to do it. So they take our queen, knight takes f6. It's a great queen sacrifice. So we've gotten 2 pieces here. So they'd only get 1 if they did this. And so you note here we have an extra bishop. We have 2 bishops, they have 1 bishop. So we're just winning in this position. King f8. You pause the video, find mate in 1. Is bishop h6. Pretty nice. King d8 is the only other legal move. Castle's long for check. It's always so satisfying to play castle with check. You know, so a lot of people love en passant. A lot of people love under promotions. I'm a big fan of under promotions. But castles with check is oddly satisfying. And here, okay, black is completely lost. They can play bishop d7. Knight takes e4 is a nice way to do it. And in this position, we're going to get the bishop for the queen and just be up a piece in the endgame. I mean, everything was losing in this position anyway. There was really nothing black could do. So after queen takes d4, it's not much else here. You know, you can play pawn f6, knight d5, everything looking great. So bishop to e7 was another option, but it's actually kind of even worse because we just take that rook, and that's an even better evaluation because now when they take the knight, we just take this knight as check now because the bishop is not here anymore. And the other option was knight to e7. Knight to e7, but just allows knight takes e4, threatening checkmate over here. So it's even worse than the rook, really. You see the engine recommending queen d6, the evaluation just getting worse and worse and worse for black with each of these options. Okay, g6, not a playable move. What about queen d7, queen e7, queen f6? I'm sure that when I said that one of these is the Stockfish move, you guys are probably like, which one is it? Right? Which one is it? I still haven't said which one it is. It's very interesting because queen d7 blocks this bishop, and it's like, you know, it's unnatural. Queen e7 blocks this bishop, and then there's queen f6, which doesn't block either bishop, although it does take away maybe this square for the knight. Maybe you don't want to play it because it looks like knight takes e4 hits the queen, but here actually black would be doing completely fine proposing this queen trade, or I believe maybe just giving that pin. But regardless, queen f6 actually loses instantly. The move is just knight d5, and with knight d5 here, the point is the queen left the c7 pawn. A queen left the c7 pawn. So, you know, if a move like queen g6, at this point, you know, we can just trade queens, take c7. Remember, we were only down a couple pawns, and so here we're just up a rook, and black loses. So black needs to hang on to c7. They have one try, which is interesting, queen c6. And if you don't see here why white is winning, I would recommend you to pause the video and find this puzzle rush tactic. The move is bishop to b5. Bishop to b5 is a very, very, very nice pattern here. Skewering the queen here. If they take our bishop, check, and we can pick up the queen next turn. Otherwise, how do they defend c7? They can go queen d6, as is the most common move, but here we have the very nice move, bishop f4. Beautiful, beautiful. Another thing that's so satisfying in chess, developing with tempo, when you just bring out your pieces and they immediately do something. They immediately make a threat and keep stopping our opponent from bringing out their pieces because it's attacking the queen. So like now, of course, if the queen moves, we take c7 and we're completely winning. Knight to f6, black can try. It's a good try because we need to be careful here. If we just take this knight, right, so it counterattacks our queen, right? So if we just take this knight, then they can take back, get the queen out of danger, and defend f7. So here actually black would be doing completely fine. However, we can just accept this queen trade, right, and then just snag that bishop. Next turn, we're playing knight takes c7. I mean, if they defend c7, then we're just up a bishop. So it doesn't matter if this is check because the rook is actually just trapped. So here, white is completely winning. And if black tries queen coming back to d8, black realizes the error of their ways for coming to queen f6 and tries coming back queen d8. Then we just play queen e5 check, and knight takes c7 is coming next turn. So queen f6, pawn g6, they both lose actually pretty immediately. And that accounts for a pretty substantial proportion of the games. So that brings us to queen to d7 and queen to e7. Which one is the Stockfish move? Let's start with queen to d7. As you may realize by now, Stockfish's recommendation was indeed queen to e7, and I'm so excited for later in the video when I need to whip these bad boys back out, the Gambit glasses, to show you how maybe our sacrifices can overcome Stockfish's refutation. But for the moment, let's get to this very interesting move, queen to d7. It's very interesting because initially I was going to recommend to you knight to d5. Knight to d5, not knight takes e4, and the point of knight to d5 can be demonstrated, for example, by black's most common move, c6. We just play queen e5 check, and knight c7 comes next turn, and black is like completely losing, pretty much. So queen to e5 is our threat. However, black has one move. There's one move that not only saves them, but gives them a large advantage, because, well, they do have two extra pawns, is bishop to d6. And you can see it's been fine 6 out of 7 times. So if you want to roll the dice, you can. And even then, it's still scoring pretty well for white, somehow. But bishop to d6, so it defends e7, defends e5. And here, black is pretty solid. I couldn't find anything here. And the thing is, so I'm recommending knight takes e4, which is actually quite good for white. And the thing is, I could have just said this is just dubious, and, you know, here's something, maybe it's playable, maybe it's not, but it's like at least exciting. But no, this is not even dubious. I'm recommending very legitimate analysis here, up to the highest level of scrutiny. And so, you know, I don't have the easiest excuse of, oh, I said it was dubious. This is actually good stuff. I'm actually recommending it, and it's exciting, and it's all that great stuff. So I welcome any challenges to this in the comments, and I welcome any challenges to this on Lichess. But so for the moment, let's get to knight takes e4. We're one pawn down. We have good compensation. I'm going to cover the 3 most common moves here for black, which are knight c6, bishop to b4, and queen to f5. I think that's really the only thing that merits covering here. So let's start with queen to f5. It makes a lot of sense for black to try and trade queens because, well, there's 2 reasons you should want to trade queens, and both of them hit home for black in this position. One is if you're up material, and black here has their extra pawn, and 2 is if your king is unsafe. And both of those are true for black. And because, you know, if you have a king that's unsafe, you should trade queens because it's very hard to attack a king without queens on the board. That's why in the end game, well, in the end game, the king can even become an asset rather than like a liability as it is with queens on the board. So for those reasons, we actually want to not trade queens. So we're going to come back queen e2, decline this queen trade, and create this discovered attack. So here we're threatening knight to d6 check. It's check with the queen there, and so threatening to take that. So black should block that discovery. And here just knight to f3. So knight to f3 does a couple things. So number 1, we attack d4, but so knight f6 is played some of the time, for instance, though. And let's cover that. So there's another idea, which is knight g5, attacking f7. And here black is actually lost right away, because if they castle to defend f7, that bishop is hanging now. And if they play rook e8, looks like maybe that's winning the queen because our king's over there, but we can just actually collect that rook. So that got even worse for black. So after knight f3, black should probably defend just the d4 pawn, continue to bring out pieces, but we're going to play anyway knight g5. We're going to play knight g5 anyway. So we hit f7, and we're using the pin, like the bishop can't help. So really black has to play knight to h6 to hang on to that. And now we just castle. And we're just going to castle here. And this is a very tricky situation for black. Because, so there's been 2 games, and both of them have been with castles. I'll cover if bishop to d7, and black maybe tries to escape this way. We play here b4. b4, so we're already with no games in the database, but I just think this is very interesting, because here we want to make that knight move. So for example, if castle's now b5, that knight has to move, and then that bishop will fall, in addition to like this pawn being a problem. So like black has to do something about that. But then we play here rook b1, we play b5, we try and play rook takes b5. Our rook is doing great things. Everything's doing pretty great here, and this is actually a fantastic position for white. So black should probably bite the bullet and castle, and where I say bite the bullet is now bishop to d3, we hit h7. So now this queen needs to find somewhere to go. Queen to c5. Or let's cover queen to d5 first. So we take this with check, just come back, bishop to e4, and here we're not even down a pawn, and you know, everything's going to develop, or maybe this bishop should go here, and white's just doing very, very well, as you see here. So that's one option. The other option is queen c5, and actually I would recommend you not to nab that pawn, but actually come back knight e4, because now when this queen moves, we can take that knight. And it's brilliant to take that knight and force g takes h6, and here black is going to have a lot of troubles because they've played g takes h6 and exposed their king. So that pretty much covers queen to f5, and black has a couple other options, including knight to c6 first. Here we just play knight to f3, as if kind of nothing had happened. Black can now play queen to f5, and you know, there is no queen e2 in this position, so it's like a little bit clever. But here we just play knight g5, and everything's fine. Black can play g6, we just come back queen h4, and we're going to castle our king, or we can castle this way as well, and bring our rooks into the game. Everything here looks pretty good. So the other option here for black is to play first g6, as is the most common move in the position, and we come back queen h4. And now here, g6, so it made a little bit of sense because it gave black some breathing room to bring out this bishop. Like bishop e7 wasn't possible because it blocked the queen from defending the f7 pawn. So g6, queen comes back to h4. Now that bishop should develop. However, you know, both are going to be pretty bad. So bishop e7 now, we play bishop to g5, everything's coming out, and it's just very difficult to play this with black. I mean, castles, these rooks are going to come into the center, there's pressure on f7, there's really pressure everywhere. Black's queen is stopping them from getting their king out that way, the king can get out that way. It's a nightmare of a position to play for black. I would have a lot of fun playing this for white. Bishop to g7 is playable, and, well, it's equally common with bishop to e7, I guess. But black is losing here pretty much. Castles, this rook's coming to e1, it's going to kill that king there. I don't even know what to recommend here for black. Queen to g4, they should try and trade queens. Yes, they should try and trade queens, but we have a clever trick, actually, that recurs in this line, which is just to play rook to e1. And if they now take, this is a nice checkmate, rook e8 coming next turn. Whether the king goes here or to d8, this is checkmate. So that's a brilliant trick here, and keeps black really on their toes and having to defend, again, an impossible position. So knight e7, it looks like maybe black's developing a little bit, but bishop h6, they have still massive problems on their dark squares. If they take that bishop, check wins the queen. So, like, I don't know what to try here. They can castle to hang on to some stuff. But, okay, knight f6, check. So they need to take that. We're threatening checkmate. Defend, take the rook. And black loses. I don't think, really, black had much better in this whole process here. And, yes, so that's, again, a very, very tough situation to play for black. And g6, as you saw, like, that we're following the most common moves. So the other option that black had was bishop to b4 check. Really the only spot where they could develop that bishop. So we play c3, and we're going to deflect that bishop away and try and make that bishop move, because we have that defended. You see some people are actually playing bishop to a5, but that actually hangs the bishop. So that's a bit of tricky info there. The bishop can't come back to e7 because of this pawn. And so then the question is, where does the bishop come back to? So there is bishop to d6. Then after bishop to d6, we just play knight h3. Knight f3 is fine, but knight h3 is better for the reason I'll show you here. So queen to f5 is black's best try to, again, propose the queen trade, maintain the defense on f7. But we just come back queen e2, and that's not something we can do, and the knight's in the way. And with knight h3, I mean, we're still preparing to castle, and we're still trying to jump in to g5 here. And again, this position is very, very tough for black to defend with knight g5 coming, with the pressure on the e-file, and not fun for them. So knight c6 is possible, which can transpose if black actually originally played knight c6, because we're playing knight g5 here anyway. So I'll show you how that actually could have transposed. If in this position, knight c6, knight f3, black comes here, check, c3, takes, bishop comes back to d6, and now knight g5. So in this position, black is actually completely losing again with a hit on f7. These are just showing some good ideas here. Knight h6 allows knight e6. So we stop the castle by controlling the f8 square, black can castle, and we're attacking g7, lots of pressure here, black loses. Knight e5 looks like it actually solves some problems because it attacks the bishop and defends here, but here's where we have a great killer tactic. You can pause the video, but it's pretty tricky. It's with knight takes f7. So knight takes f7 anyway, allowing this, and after knight takes d6, black has no good capture. If they play queen takes, of course, they lose the defense here, and we just take that with check, bishop g5, and we're winning the queen. If they play c takes, then that was the goal, just to get that pawn away from here. We play bishop to b5, a brilliant defense there, but that is actually winning the queen like this. So that basically covers queen to d7. We simply play knight takes e4 in this position, and we have various ideas to continue our attack. This knight is going to jump into g5. We're going to castle sometimes in either direction, and we're going to keep up a lot of pressure. Queen f5, all the time we want to try and meet with queen e2. And it's a very, very tough position for black to play. Okay, this brings us to Mr. Stockfish's favorite move, queen to e7. Now with queen to e7, it's like a little bit unnatural because you have to realize that knight d5, I mean, you're inviting it with tempo, but you have to know that you have this great move, knight to f6. Knight to f6 is the only way really to deal with this. It's like a queen trade proposal, kind of. I mean, we don't want to just do that. And I mean, with knight to f6, you have to realize that takes, knight takes c8. This knight's actually not going to escape. So knight to d5 is not my recommendation because our opponent here, I mean, it's not the most common move, but our opponent here could find knight to f6. So instead, after queen to e7, I'm going to recommend to you to play bishop to g5. Bishop to g5, so we're attacking the queen. There's no pawn f6 because of the pin. And black's only option really is to play knight f6. They have this move g6. Proposing queen trade, but we go takes f8. Black should not take c3 because bishop g7 actually loses the rook, as one person has done here. But after king takes f8, knight takes e4. I mean, black is technically up one pawn, but there's like so many weaknesses here. I would much rather be white. White has very simple development, looks much better here. So g6 is possible, but okay, black has to play knight to f6 to keep the queen there in its very awkward positioning, blocking the bishop. Knight to f6 does attack our queen, so we should take that knight. And in this position, black has queen takes f6, and g takes f6, and they're about equally common. So let's get to it. So there's g takes f6, and now we're going to hop in knight d5. There's no knight f6 to distract us. So now knight d5, it's a very powerful knight, because it's looking at many targets in addition to, of course, this queen, and black needs to know to play queen d6. So queen e5 is also quite common, but kind of mysterious, because the queen needs to hold c7, and on queen e5, we can just trade. Knight takes c7, and we're just going to be up a rook. So black needs to know queen d6 here. So they're clinging onto their two extra pawns. Things are defended kind of awkwardly. They really have nothing developed, but we're just going to castle here. So trying to play rook takes d4. And now, like, what do you do if you're black? This is a very, very unenviable position, if I may. So c6 is an option, attacking our knight. Our knight can actually just retreat, either to c3 or e3, because we have this beautiful pin here. We're going to take this. We're going to keep coming out. It's kind of a dream position for me to be playing, honestly. Otherwise, they need to defend d4 somehow. Pawn c5 is an option. However, it does entrench our knight there. So pawn c5 is a pretty solid way, but there's no c6 ever. And here I'd recommend to you play f3, chipping away at this. And now, okay, takes is a dream for us, because knight takes f3 develops very nicely, and everything comes out. And otherwise, there's going to be a pawn trade here, because you can't push past with e3, because we can, again, just take that. Rooks keep coming in. Here, black's only up one pawn, which is not nearly enough compensation, I think, for the awful position that they have. Otherwise, okay, we just take it, bring our knight into the game. Everything looks great here. So there is a game, actually, I'd like to show you with this. So it is with the counter Gambit of the Sneider Attack, bishop to c4 attacking, queen to e7. Black's finding all the right lines. And in this game, black played knight c6, which is playable, knight e2. So we continue to come out with our stuff, and we're going to here try and play knight takes d4. And in this position, though, black played bishop to d7, thinking, okay, you're going to take here, but at least I'm going to escape. At least I'm going to escape. But no, white found a very nice move, knight takes c7, check. So now the point is queen takes c7, and because the bishop came here, there's tactics everywhere. When your just pieces are so bad, your king's in the middle. Because the bishop came here, it blocked the future queen's defense. So this is a brilliant knight sacrifice. Takes, queen takes f6 check. And here, I mean, white just took the rook and is now just completely winning. Although, you know, ended the game, I think, pretty nicely. Just kind of underscoring all the issues here with the fork. Black finally had enough and resigned. So that pretty much covers g takes f6. I mean, just not fun positions all around for black. So black should try queen takes f6. Queen takes f6. So now we must play knight takes e4. And in this position here, black needs to again be precise with the queen. So they have a couple options. Queen e7 and queen g6 account for almost all the moves. Queen g6 is playable. There are some fun options here like check and like coming back queen e2, but I'm just going to recommend you guys actually, honestly, just to trade this. Castle our king, play knight f3. Like for example, black defends this pawn, knight f3. We're going to get our pawn back and we're going to have a great position in the endgame. The other issue that black is going to have is knight g5. There's really no good way to defend f7. So this rook's also coming into e1. White's just having a very fun position and is getting, I think, at least their pawn back here. So queen g6 is not the critical try. And the critical try is queen to e7. And at this point, I'm going to need these bad boys, the Gambit glasses. So at this point, to follow the Stockfish recommendation, black has needed to know to play queen to e7, then queen takes f6, then back queen d7. A very, very precise series of awkward queen moves to hang on. They have one pawn to show for it, for this very measly position. And the reason why I put these on, the Gambit glasses, is to play castles long. Castles long, inviting queen takes e4, and queen takes e4 is the top choice of the engine. It's the top choice of the engine, and thinks we're totally wrong. So you know, if you want to refute this, you're going to have to play queen takes knight, as 2 out of the 25 people were bold enough to do. But the point is, after queen takes knight, okay, we take f7, king d8, and now, I mean, yeah, we just play knight f3, and this position is no fun at all for black to play. You see, I mean, both games white won. But this is fantastic compensation for the piece. I mean, black has nothing. Like you have an extra piece in theory. Where's that extra piece? It's one of these bishops, but it's not doing anything. Like pieces are only as good as when you actually do something. And white's king is snugly safe. I mean, of course, rook takes d4 is the primary threat here. So I mean, these two games with bishop d6, queen g6. So queen g6 is an option. As I said, trading queens is a good idea. But here we have a very nice move, knight e5. Knight e5. So now if you trade queens, okay, you lose a rook and you're losing the game here. So in this position here, white is doing fantastic. Okay, they can give a check, but you know, these rooks are coming in, and like who would want to play black here? This is crazy. So otherwise, bishop to d6, I think just invites queen takes g7, eating more stuff. I think this advantage swings for white's favor soon enough. But anyway, I like this position for white. I would play this any day of the week. So queen takes e4 is the top choice. However, it's not the only choice. So we see here there is also g6. And there's knight to c6. So knight to c6 is an option, and we just play knight to f3, and honestly, we're doing quite well, because if queen takes e4, now we have rook to e1, so that's not even on the table. I'm sorry, it's not even knight to f3. Knight c6 just loses. It's rook e1. Nobody's found it. I just got swept up because 6 out of 6 people is playing knight f3, and I was just like, what's the move? It's rook e1 here, because now we have this threat, and here I think black is just completely lost. Yeah, completely lost. So this e file is killer. Bishop e6, knight g5. This pin is still killer. You see here, ooh, knight d6 check. Very, very clever. So if they take it, rook e6, we win the queen. I like that. Great use of the pin here. Okay, but otherwise we're just playing knight to f6 check. So for example, bishop to d7. Yeah, okay, I'm right about this. Knight to f6 check. They play g takes f6. We also have this pawn hanging. Our rook's just doing great, and we're just going to take the queen and win the game. So rook e1 actually just wins the game if they just play a normal developing move like knight c6. Instead, they have to find this move g6. G6. So it attacks our queen, and black here is thinking that we're just going to trade. Or sorry, just come back with our queen, and maybe they can develop and castle the king and survive, and they'll give that pawn back, but maybe they'll survive. And we say, no. I took those off just for dramatic effect to put them back on. It's true. Bishop f7. Bishop takes f7. It's happened twice. But actually, I think I looked at these games, it looked like these users were cheaters and actually had their account closed, so I can't show their games on principle for that reason. But here, black needs to be very precise. So if queen takes f7, here's the big Stockfish line. This is the big Stockfish line. So there was queen takes e4. That was one piece sacrifice that black had to accept in order to follow Stockfish line. g6 is the other Stockfish choice. So there's queen takes f7, queen to e5 check. Like those were like its two favorite options. They were close. But the point is the rook is hanging now. And so, you know, if here or here, we can just take the rook. Bishop e6, actually the best option. Taking the rook is okay, but actually, you know, in this position, black gets good compensation and can castle their king. And, you know, now they actually have their pieces out and they sacrifice something back. So always fun to sacrifice something. But okay, here we just play knight g5. We're playing queen takes e6 next turn. So for example, queen f5, takes. Here we're not even down anything. c7's hanging, this is hanging. A disaster of a position for black into the endgame. So black cannot play like that, so they need to find king takes f7. King takes f7, and the point of our crazy sacrifice was we were going to play queen to d5 check. And now, what to do? What to do? Where to go with this king? So if you go king to e8, or, I mean, we have a few different options here. So king to g7, queen takes check, and the king should hold on to that rook, probably. The thing is, they have just no pieces out to help them. They have no pieces out to help them, so we can play knight f6 check, king here, knight d5. We want to take that rook, we want to go here, we want to go here, we want to go queen c4. We have all sorts of things we want to do. Very, very fun position to play for white, and a great, great piece sacrifice, in my opinion. So there is king to e8 as another option. And this position, just knight f3. Just knight f3, and we're just calling them out that, like, your position sucks. It really does, because rook e1 is coming, knight g5 is coming, we can just play queen takes d4 if our queen is hitting the rook. King can come over to b1 if there's maybe some pestery check, but this king cannot castle. And so, like, what are you going to do about this e-file? No fun at all to play. You know, I would happily accept challenges from viewers who are even booked up from this position. I would love to play something like this as white. And otherwise, the other option is queen to e6, knight to g5 check, taking the queen. So bishop to e6 has been played in 2 out of 2 games. But the point of bishop to g6 is this gets a little more crazy, because knight g5, this king actually can't go backwards. Kings should go backwards with queens on the board, but if the king goes backwards, then they lose their precious extra piece. So the king needs to come forwards. But now we play queen takes d4 check. So the king, you know, holds defense of this bishop. Play queen takes d4 check. So that rook's hit. And the king, again, I mean, he's got to come here or here. Only legal moves. To come forwards again, we can play knight f3 check. I believe king h5 is considered more precise than king h6, because king h5 will allow that check, I think, just to, like, help black develop. But here we can throw in queen to e5. I ran Stockfish pretty long. It liked the best and showed about equals with h3 and g4 as, like, another idea to checkmate. But so, okay, queen to e5 check, and queen takes h8, also very good. So black here has 2 pieces for the rook, which is a material advantage. But is it a material advantage that justifies your king being here? I don't think so. So you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments about the Sneider Attack, about if you found something that refutes it. If you play it, I will absolutely be playing it. So please subscribe to the channel and like and leave a comment and hit the bell for notifications. I really, really appreciate all the support. I would love if you guys subscribe right now. And thank you so much for watching this video. And peace out. This has been another Gambit Glasses game. Subscribe. And here we play knight to move. G5 first. G5 first. Okay. We're just gonna play queen h5. Oh my goodness. You guys, oh my goodness, this move. Guys, I am so excited